let's talk about Sonic Frontiers. This is going to be a weird one. This is going to be all over the place. I'm going to try to condense it as best I can here, and I apologize if it's a bit of a wacky, kind of fucking miscombobulated mess, but here's the deal. It's Sonic Frontiers. This is the newest Sonic game, just came out last week, and I wanted to jump right on into this one. Now, obviously, earlier this year, I actually played Sonic Adventure for the millionth time, and I played Sonic Lost World for the very first time. And this was kind of something I was looking forward to, was like playing 3 different Sonic games kind of throughout the year and to kind of see how it all panned out and how I could compare and contrast. The funny thing is, I feel like there isn't really a lot of comparing and contrasting going on because this game is so unique and different in its own way. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it certainly attempts to make a Sonic game that is wholly different, while at the same time relying on the past to make it what it is. So in order for me to talk about this in a condensed manner, I'm going to basically break this up into 2 parts. The first, we're going to talk about the story, and then we'll go into gameplay. Now, when it comes to the story of Sonic Frontiers, there's nothing crazy to write home about. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's a pretty straightforward plot. There is a villain. We are there to stop this villain. It is just like every other Sonic game. However, one thing that really stood out to me playing this game, especially under the tutelage that knowing that Ian Flynn, who is the current writer for the IDW Sonic comic series, the current ongoing comics, he's kind of one of those people who have been renowned, similar to Tyson Hesse, who have been part of the Sonic franchise in the last decade or so that have kind of been a positive change. Tyson Hesse being the person who's worked on a lot of the animations for games like Sonic Mania and the prequel story stuff that you can find on YouTube for Sonic Frontiers. He also worked on the story stuff for I think it was Team Sonic Racing. None of which any of these are in the actual game, other than Sonic Mania, which is the opening cutscene. But Tyson Hesse has done a great job. He also redesigned Sonic for the movies and was kind of the main force behind that. So as far as the story goes, we got Ian Flynn jumping in to take over the story, and he did a really good job. I think this is one of those rare games where, especially in Sonic, everything kind of is based on world building this time. We're not really as focused on the extremities, right? You think about Sonic Forces or any of the other big Sonic games where there's a million characters. You got Silver the Hedgehog. You got people who don't even make sense that they're there. You got the Team Chaotix. You got all these people who, it's just like, we don't fucking need any of these people. They're just a huge list of characters that are in every single game. But in this game, it really breaks it down to the core. You got Sonic, you got Tails, you got Knuckles, you got Amy, and you got Eggman, and that's it. There's obviously the new character, Sage, who was introduced for the game as the antagonist, if you will. But other than that, that is all you get. It is entirely built around the relationships of these people. And I thought that was such a great move because it really lets you focus on relationships that have lasted so long. I mean, these relationships lasted from the original Genesis games all the way till now. And they were able to focus on that. And the story was able to kind of talk about old stories, old gameplay that it's so odd because like they never talk about what happened in Sonic Unleashed. They never talk about, what happened in some of these other games, and it's like, oh, it's so refreshing to hear them actually like explain, like, yeah, remember when we did this, like, and it not just being a Family Guy self-referential bullshit. It's like they're actually using it to understand, like, yeah, well, we fought this in a previous game, and that was a hell of a time. So here you can kind of put it in perspective, like understanding, like, yeah, remember when we did that? That was tough. This is on the same level, if not worse. So I just really appreciated that they took the time to tell a story that, wasn't crazy. It wasn't earth-shattering. It didn't change the fabric of Sonic, but it gave more backstory to some of the most core items in the series, the Chaos Emeralds. It explained more about elements that we have, as fans of the franchise, have kind of just accepted because it's like, well, it's so long, you just kind of accept them. But it's like, wow, this is cool to kind of get some backstory and build upon the world that already exists instead of attempting to add a bunch of other bullshit in, which many Sonic games do. Unfortunately, this whole video cannot be about the story because I don't have a lot more to say. I feel like that's pretty much my thoughts. It was a fine story. I enjoyed it for the most part. Nothing crazy, nothing to write home about, but I enjoyed the world building, character building, all that good stuff. Let's talk about the gameplay, that's it, right? When it comes to Sonic, it's all about the gameplay. It always has been, whether it's the 2D games or the 3D games, it always comes down to the gameplay. And here's the deal, folks. I love Sonic just as much as the next guy, but man, the gameplay in this game is shit. I mean shit. And, you know, it sucks because the game is built to be essentially a Breath of the Wild clone, a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild clone, in the sense that not just that it's a open world game. I mean, there are a million open world games, but the environment, the characters, the creatures, there are so many things that are so obviously a fucking ripoff. And you know what? I wish that was the most of my complaints. I wish that was it. I wish, yeah, it's just too similar to this other game, because man, that is such a surface level fucking issue. I'm gonna try to speed through this a little bit to not make it too long. Here are my complaints about the fucking gameplay. First of all, it just feels like shit. Even in the overworld, which is the most fun, by the way, you can just run like a fucking mad. When you have a max amount of rings, you get this lightning power, which is fucking straight out of the movie, which is cool. I thought it was awesome. Makes you run super fast. There's nothing more fucking fun in this game than being in the big open world and just fucking bolting across the map. It's great. But even that has its problems where, you know, it just sometimes, and the best way I can describe it is like there are parts where, you know, throughout the whole map, there are these little puzzles that you can do, and they'll get you items you need, rings, whatever. And a lot of times in these, they will force you into 2D. And you might think like, okay, well, there's a lot of gameplay in Sonic. It is 2D. But the thing is, when you're in the overworld and you're running around, and you bounce on a spring or you jump on a rail, and then the game switches to 2D, and you cannot fucking leave the 2D mode. You're now locked into a 2D. You cannot go in the other dimension. Like, you can't just keep traveling. You're now stuck in a little 2D section that you have to either complete or somehow manage to break out of. And it instantly halts all your fucking gameplay, all your momentum. You're just fucking stuck in this thing, which when you're first starting out, it's not too bad because you're collecting these items. But when you're a little ways in and you've already done that, or you already have the items you need, or you already have the rings you need, it's like, I don't want to be stuck in a fucking 2D section that I can't. I want to fucking running, man. Don't block me into this shit. And it happened throughout the entire fucking game. Honestly, sometimes pressing shit just doesn't fucking work. That's another complaint. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I would press R2, the right trigger, to boost, and I just didn't boost. I just didn't fucking boost. And my controller's not fucking broken, because this has never been an issue with me with any fucking game. Now, I will say I had a similar issue when playing Sonic Lost World earlier this year on Steam, and that I just kind of thought was the game. I thought, oh, Sonic Lost World has kind of issues where it's not really reading the boost. But I had the exact same fucking issue with this game. And sometimes I feel like if the game just, I don't know if it's caught up in what it's doing, and it just, you press a button, you swear to God you fucking hit it, and it doesn't do anything, and you're just like, man, I feel like I'm pressing every button like 5 fucking times. That was infuriating. Now, there are these levels within the overworld, the cyberspace levels. Now, these are all kind of based on previous Sonic games, right? This is where a lot of the repetition comes into play. You're playing through levels based on stuff from Sonic 1, 2, 3, a little bit of Sonic Adventure, not much. But that's a huge chunk of the gameplay, which, you know, you need to play these levels in order to get items, keys that you need to then unlock progress in the game. Now, these cyber levels, let me make this clear, in my personal opinion, are 90% shit. Just like awful fucking, the mechanics of the game, which are the same as in the overworld, do not feel like they are built for this game. It feels like you are running too fast. The amount of times I boosted off a ledge, I swear to fucking God, I touched an item that I wanted to pick up and it didn't fucking care. Just like I jumped and homing attacked something and somehow missed it, even though it's a fucking homing attack. Like, these fucking cyber levels, sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're whatever, and especially if you're just trying to run through them. But eventually you have to really get those keys, and I will come back to this, but the keys are important and you need a lot of them, so you really want to make sure you collect basically all of the objectives in each cyber level in order to get the maximum amount of keys, so you don't have to fucking keep playing them. There are climbable walls in the overworld, which are, honestly, half the time, you just can't grab onto them. At least that's what I experienced. I swear to fucking God, you jump on these walls and you can hold R2 or right trigger and you will run up the wall. I swear to God, there were so many times I grabbed the wall, just fall off the wall. It's like, it's so like, it's so finicky. So like, if you press the right trigger 1 second too early, oh, it doesn't count. And it's so like, it's like, man, you really wanted this to be fucking precise, huh? You really needed this to be fucking pin fucking point accurate, you motherfuckers. Combat. Okay, combat is a huge element of the game, right? The biggest change in this game as far as gameplay goes is they added a combat system, which is interesting, right? Similar to Sonic Unleashed as the Werehog, but this is just normal gameplay. Here's the deal with combat. Combat sucks. Killing enemies basically gets you fucking nothing. The only enemies that I would ever bother with are the big enemies because they will actually drop items you usually need. But even that, honestly, again, we'll come back to this because you don't really need to bother with it. But I hate the combat. I think the combat is fucking awful. I think when it's the very beginning of the game and most enemies can be killed in 1 hit or 2 hits, it's fine. But when you progress and you have to do like 50 hits to kill an enemy, or like, oh, you have to fight an enemy, but every like 3 seconds it has an electric field that goes off, so you have to wait, and then you can hit him again, and then you have to wait, and then you have to hit him again. It's like, dude, I just want to fucking move, man. I don't want to fucking be wasting my time with this. When you run across an enemy in the overworld, the camera then locks onto the enemy. So if you're trying to run past an enemy, it will then lock onto the enemy. So you either have to fight this fucker or try to leave and fight against the camera, which is locked onto this motherfucker. It's like, man, like I know they wanted this to be the thing. They wanted the combat to be important, but like I fucking hate the combat, and it is by far my least favorite part of the game. And to add on to that, I want to talk about the bosses. So there are 4 bosses in the game, right? And each of these bosses I had a fucking problem with. The first boss, you're fighting a giant fucking thing, and you have to parry it, right? You have a very limited amount of time to beat this guy, and you only have as many rings. So let me kind of break it down a little bit. You're fighting this guy as Supersonic, and when you're Supersonic, you have to move quickly because you only have as much time in Supersonic form as many rings as you have. So if you have 300 rings, you have 300 seconds. If you have 200 rings, you have 200 seconds. So you go into the fight with however many rings you have, right? You fight this dude, and you have that time limit hanging over your head. And then in order to beat this dude, you have to parry his attacks because it's the only way to do maximum amount of damage to this guy. Now, my problem with that is parrying is very easy. However, this lumbering fuck will swing his arms and completely fucking miss you, causing way more time to go by, meaning you're losing time. And if you, God forbid, die like I did, you then respawn with only 100 rings, meaning you only have a maximum of 100 seconds, and there were no rings I could find in this entire area. So you have a maximum now of 100 seconds to beat this fucker, which I'll tell you, by the time I finally beat him after about dying 40 times, I think I had about 3 seconds left. Unfucking believable for the first boss. And I thought, wow, they're really ramping up the difficulty, and believe me, we'll come to it. The second boss I wanted to mention because it's much better than the first boss, especially because at the end you have a like quick time event sequence, which felt like that should have been in the first boss as well, but it wasn't. And my only real problem with the second boss was there's a point where you're chasing after him in the sky, and like there's just so much shit flying at you, all of which can hurt you and throw you back. But like I couldn't see what the fuck I was doing. I mean, there's literally just so much debris on the fucking screen. I couldn't see where I was going, where the hell I was half the time, and it was near impossible to not constantly get fucking hit by the barrage of missiles or whatever shit he's throwing at you. For the third boss, this one wasn't as bad, but like there comes a point in the third boss where I literally out loud said, I have no idea what the fuck I'm supposed to do. Because this boss at one point is just literally spinning around the fucking arena like a ballerina, and I'm just like, oh, am I supposed to hurt him? Like I can touch him for like 1 second, of course, time running out, and eventually realizing there's a shield flying around the arena which you're supposed to parry in order to hit him with. Which there was nothing of any kind of that had ever happened. There was never any shield that like. I understand the mechanics, like when you look back on it, but in the moment it's like, why would you not explain this? Why would you not say, hey, parry this, or like have it like do something that already happened to you so that you would know, oh, this has happened to me before, so I know to parry this. Like not just fucking, what am I doing? Why is nothing happening? Why is this, he's not even attacking me? I'm just standing here like a fucking idiot. And as far as the final boss goes, I just want to mention, this is really weird. So the final boss, really, you know, oh god, this is going to be the big one. How fucking hard is this going to be? I beat the boss in about 30 seconds. It was the easiest fight in the entire game, and it was very weird. Then it pretty much just goes into the final cutscene, and that's the end of the game. And I was just like, what a fucking, what? Like, why, what the fuck were they thinking? Come to find out later, the final boss of the game is stupidly easy. I don't really know why, but if you beat him on the hardest difficulty, you unlock a second portion of the fight, which is way harder. And which I thought, oh, okay. I mean, that's weird. That's some fucking weird ass shit. But also, when you beat the harder version of the boss, it still plays the same ending cutscene. Nothing changes. So it's just like, okay, so if you play the game on easy or normal, you get a shit final boss and then the ending. And if you play on hard, you get a harder final boss and then the ending. It's like, what? But what's why? What was the like? Did they think the final boss was too hard? But then instead of making it easier, they just said fucking cut the last part of it out. Like it's like a whole separate thing, and it's like, why? I don't understand the logic. Put into 99% of this fucking game. I don't fucking understand. And lastly, I just want to mention, and this is what I had kind of alluded to earlier. There's a mini game. There are many mini games, most of which are not even worth mentioning. But there is one in particular, which is the fishing minigame featuring Big the Cat, the beloved character. And at first, I kind of thought these were weird and like kind of just goofy and a little side thing, until I realized you can just fish, which by fishing you get basically money, and then you can use that money to buy any collectible basically in the game as much as you fucking want. So you can then basically break the entire fucking game, because fishing is not only incredibly fucking easy, but at least for me, about halfway through the game, I had a maxed out amount of tokens needed to fish. It costs like between 4 and 8 tokens, depending how late you are in the game, to fit per fish. But it's like, dude, by the time I got like halfway through the game, I had 999. Like I was never gonna run out. I think by the end I still had like 875, and I had like maxed out a shitload of stuff. It's like you can just. So my advice would be, if you're gonna play this game, honestly, avoid 90% of the game. Get to Big the fucking Cat, fish, get as much fucking of the shit you want, get every single fucking collectible you can, and fuck the rest, because the rest of this is such a fucking disappointment to me. I love Sonic. I like this game's world building. I like the game characterization. I even like the new characters introduced. But man, the gameplay is just such a fucking sadness. It genuinely to me feels like people who have lost their fucking touch and do not know how to make a fucking game, because this is so fucking embarrassingly, just pathetically fucking bad. I absolutely unabashedly despise the fucking gameplay in this piece of shit called Sonic Frontiers. I don't know. I walk away from this game like, I don't want to fucking touch this thing. But I don't actually hate it. I don't think it's a piece of shit. And I think if you are willing to put up with a lot of bullshit and a lot of dumb fucking shitty gameplay and like feels like it's not even been tested, then you'll probably have a fine enough time. But I'm good. I'll stick with Sonic Adventure. I'll stick with Sonic Adventure 2. This is no Sonic Adventure 3. This is a sadness. Thanks, Sonic Frontiers. Fucker. Yeah. I don't know.